Welcome to part three. We're just waiting for Bob to join us. Talking some heavyweight action tonight, aren't we? It's a good guest, is Bob. Looking forward to having Chris Smedley come on channel. Uh, might be coming on as a regular, so that's good, isn't it? How are you doing, Bob?
Good, good. My video is gone. Hang on. There we go.
Right, you were saying about Anthony Joshua and Fury and that, and it's the sparred 14 years ago, and the story sort of took a life on of its own. 14
14
now
years.
has been talking about it and a bit overcooked in it now.
Yeah, a bit.
Do you remember when they said Wilder were fighting the winner of Vladimir Joshua?
Yes. Another fight that never happened.
That were April 2017.
Wow.
So Eddie Hearn, this great promoter, he hasn't been able to put that on in 8 years, has he?
Wow. Time just flies, eh? Like, you don't realize it until you start doing that math. But yeah, it's it's a pity that Wilder and Joshua never got it on when they were at their physical best. That's another, well, I mean, it's another fight that was missed, right?
Yeah, but when you look at it, though, all these fighters, these fighting men, they're not other. And then you look at Ali, who he fought.
Yeah, look at any any of the great fighters prior to the last 20 years. There were very few big fights that were missed due to politics. I mean, Lennox Lewis, Riddick Bowe, that was missed due to politics. Um, like Frazier Norton never fought because they had a close personal friendship. Um, but there were very few. It seems that it's even more and more the case in the last 20 years, shall we say, roughly 20 years. And in this current crop, yeah, like you can almost sort of, it's almost like who didn't you fight is more than who did you fight. If you look at the resumes of Fury, Wilder, and Joshua, and you go through those resumes carefully, they're all pretty thin, to be honest with you, aren't they?
Yeah. When you look at Joshua and Furies, you could pick bones out of them CVs all day long. Who could you put up there? Vladimir, Wilder. Out of their best
Vlad,
wins, you'd say Vladimir and Wilder, wouldn't you?
yeah. So Fury takes on Vlad when Vlad was old. Joshua does the same when he was even older. Joshua fights a younger Dillian White. Fury fights Dillian White. Fury has a trilogy with Chisora that nobody wants. Joshua does Povetkin and Pulev. Joshua does Joyce. No, Parker, sorry. Um,
Yeah.
after that, after that, like I know but Fury only had one mandatory ever.
Dylan White
So yeah, I mean, and remember he fought.
held
Was
the
it Tom?
belt hostage.
You remember he fought Tom Schwartz?
We held that belt, right? And nobody said a word.
I know. It's criminal. Like it really was.
Right? Well, what's the point in getting into position through rankings and then they're just not going to fight you anyway?
No.
Imagine Ali, Muhammad Ali, doing that. They got laughed at, wouldn't he?
Well, it simply wouldn't have happened, right? I mean, yeah, it's entirely different eras. I did a video three-parter about the my top 10 all time, and without giving away any big secrets, these guys that we're talking about now, they're not in the mix. So, like they just don't qualify on resumes, right? It's just not there. So they've all made lots of money, though. They've all made lots and lots and lots of money.
Yeah, it's a shame, innit? We don't get the
And they've got,
fights we want.
yeah.
Uh, my argument is though, how has Del Boy got into position for that debate thing? It's just pure luck and all, innit? Right, Moses Atome, he can't break Mike Tyson's record now, apparently, when he next fights. Do you think that's going to
No,
halt his career path?
well, yeah, I mean, it's now mathematically impossible for him to break Mike Tyson's record. He could break Floyd Patterson's record and become the second youngest.
Yeah,
He could break Herbie Hyde's record and become the youngest British heavyweight.
yeah.
Um,
Herbie Hyde
I
were
don't,
born in Nigeria.
yeah, and Moses Atomo was born in Slovenia
Oh
or
yeah, yeah,
Slovakia.
yeah. Well, Derek Chisora. So sorry, yeah, yeah. I see where you're coming from. Yeah, British,
Yeah,
British. Yeah, yeah.
British nationality,
They
British
can still
passport
fight for a
holder.
British title. I mean, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. But Herbie Hyde won a world title. He's the youngest British guy, or British passport holder,
yeah,
whatever,
yeah,
to
yeah.
win a world title. So he could beat that record. I think your question was, will it harm his career? No, actually, I think it might help his career
By not
because if
rushing
he,
him.
that's right, had he been rushed and won a world title, then really the only people he's got left to fight are, well, in theory, sort of, your top five, top six in the world. But if you haven't got the foundational stuff built and put in place, you're setting yourself up to take losses that you wouldn't otherwise take. So if you were advising a guy like Moses, you'd want Moses to get rounds in, fights in, send him over to the US, send him into other parts of the world, build a really solid foundation. So when he becomes world champion at, say, pick a number, 25, that he's got like an 8 or 10 year career because he's got that foundational stuff. Because if you rush him in, he could really end up getting beaten by a fighter who truly shouldn't be able to beat him, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're gonna see, aren't we, how good he is, this Moses Atome, because he's not been hit yet, has he?
No, he's not. Well, the best he's been in with is Dempsey McCain, which, I mean, Dempsey McCain went the distance or almost the distance with Philip Hrgovic. But yeah, he has not really been in with anybody who's going to put it back on him. Everybody's saying that he looks great, but I'd like to see him in with somebody. I'm sure we can both think of names, but put him in with Jared Anderson. See how that works out.
A good fight, that, or Frank Sanchez.
Yeah, either of
Makhmedov, is
those.
it Makhmedov or something? The Russian one, him looks like a bear.
Yeah, I think he's what's the expression you like to use? A busted flush.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, scary though. He's got a career in Hollywood, that's for sure. Hey, James
yeah,
Bond villain.
yeah, yeah. American werewolf in London job.
Yeah,
Big shout out to Peter De Freitas. Hope you're getting well, Pete.
yeah. I
Right,
second that.
yeah, yeah, right. George Foreman and Colin Hart passed away. Your thoughts on Colin Hart first?
Well, of course, I grew up reading Colin Hart.
In the Sun.
In the sun, looking at page three probably, and spending way more time than my mother would have approved of me looking at that. Those back in the day. But no, I grew up reading Colin Hart. I think Colin Hart is one of those old time journalists of integrity and gravitas. Whether you agreed with his perspective or not, it was well thought through. Kind of like in the US, Thomas Hauser, in that same sort of vein of a serious journalist. Um, so I think that's a great loss for boxing. He had a good innings. He was 90 years old, right? Or I'm not sure if he turned 90 or not. I know he was born in 1935. So yes, he will definitely be missed. And I don't think we're going to see that level of journalistic integrity, gravitas, skill again, because print media is essentially dying, and we live in a world now of camera jockeys who've got access. So I think Colin Hart will be greatly missed, and extend our sympathies and condolences to his friends and family.
Yeah, but getting back to that access word, then we access. No, they daren't ask what they should, or they won't have access.
I think access is a double-edged sword. Um, I think if those camera jockeys realize they also have power, that it's like a symbiotic relationship, right? It's all, Frank Warren acts as though he's like a warlord and they are minions. But if Frank Warren holds a press conference and nobody shows up, Frank Warren don't have a press conference. So I think that those YouTube media type people, they actually have more power than they understand, but they are prepared to sell their souls for the easy sort of, I took Eddie Hearn for his first Burger King kind of news clip, which is, insulting to those of us that actually have more than one brain cell working at any one time.
I know. Hey, do you know
Yeah,
what
it's
the funny
fucking
thing about
pathetic.
it is, right? They're being controlled that much by these promoters. These promoters are all going home at night and they're just laughing.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's like, yeah. And you also asked about George Foreman. I mean, George Foreman is an all-time great in my view. Olympic gold medalist, 1968 Mexico, outstanding first career. Uh, Beat Frazier twice, beat Norton, beat Lyle. Um, a participant in one of the greatest fights ever, the Rumble in the Jungle. Takes 10 years off, does good work, finds the Lord, does a lot of good work for impoverished youth. Then comes back, doesn't get put off his feet once during his comeback. Fights Holyfield. Holyfield couldn't put him down, even though Holyfield hit him with over 20 unanswered shots. And then it's the magical moment. He beats Michael Moorer. He uh, he had a plan. He had a plan from the outset that he had shared with with people around him, and he was prepared to lose every minute of every round until Moorer presented him with his chin with that word. This is the sleep button, and Big George popped him right there and then. And then Big George has a stellar career as an HBO analyst for what, 12 years, and he makes $138 million off endorsing the George Foreman grill, which I own a George Foreman grill. A legendary figure. I was really personally saddened when he passed, even though, of course, I'd never met George Foreman, didn't know George Foreman, but I grew up watching George Foreman. I was 13 years old when he dropped Frazier, giving line and that line, and down goes Frazier. That was an iconic thing.
Yeah.
Part of my well, I guess not early childhood, part of my early teenagehood. So I actually took that really quite hard. And again, I think we all sort of send our sympathies and condolences to his very large and clearly much beloved family. The last of the great 1970s fighters. Honorable mention to Larry Holmes, but I mean, I often think of Larry Holmes as an early 80s fighter, even though he won the title in 78. So yeah, it's a closing of a chapter, and I think we all kind of, shed a tear when that happens.
Yeah, it's all that poke he had as well in bank and he's dropped dead.
Yeah. And I don't know how old you are, Ross, but as
Oh,
every year that goes by and I get older, when I read about people dying, it sort of reminds me of my own mortality. George Foreman was 11 years older than me. Um, and, you stop and think for a second when that happens, right?
yeah, yeah. Where does he rank on your all-time list, Bob?
My lifetime, so if you start, say, 1960 to now, George Foreman is number four. Ali, Ali, Holmes, Lewis, then Foreman. On
As
my
in Lennox Lewis.
That's correct, yes. And if you look at my all time, I have Joe Louis, Muhammad Ali, Larry Holmes. I think George Foreman is about five or six, all time, all time.
Hmm. Larry Holmes is always in mixing with people's top five, isn't he?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Larry Holmes has to be, based on quality of opposition. He went 48 and 0. Um, And yeah, Larry Holmes' biggest problem was he stepped into the shoes of Muhammad Ali, which is a job that nobody, whenever you step into the shoes of a great, you're always viewed as though you're not quite as good. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or not accepted, shall we say.
Yeah. Well, he's got a good CV, Larry Holmes, hasn't he?
Outstanding.
All them defenses. I thought Tim Witherspoon beat him though.
Yeah, I mean, Larry Holmes was lucky to get the decision in a number of his fights, right? But the the record books are what the record books are, eh? Um, Larry Holmes didn't do himself any favors with the press either. You remember when he fought Jerry Cooney,
Yeah.
and he was talking about how Marciano couldn't hold his jock strap, and he was making like gratuitously unpleasant statements, which
Mm.
didn't really endear him to anybody. So Larry Holmes came onto the scene as though he had a chip on his shoulder, which, to be fair, he probably did. But Larry Holmes is a great fighter, a great record.
Yeah. Yeah. Where do you think Hamzah Sheeraz goes now? I mean, they're going to have problems matching him, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I've not really been a big fan of Hamzah Sheeraz. I've often thought of Hamzah Sheeraz as being overhyped, um, and that's not his fault, right? I mean, he's been elevated. Um, the question I have is, does he stay at that weight? Like, given how tall he is, he could easily move into a higher weight division. Um, they're going to have problems. They are going to have problems with him. Yeah. I mean, I I would like to see him fight a few more times before I make a real before I really decide on whether he's hype or heart. Um, I mean, I'm absolutely convinced that Adames beat him. I think Hamza was very, very fortunate to get a draw there. So I'd like to see him move to a different weight class, to be honest, and let's start a rebuilding process in a higher weight class. Apparently, he walks around at something like close to 200 pounds.
That's a lot, that, isn't it? £200 for when you're fighting at 160.
Yeah, so why not? I'm not suggesting that he fight at
Why go to light
175.
heavyweight? Go to light heavyweight and give yourself best opportunity.
Go to 168.
Yeah, or 168. Yeah.
Who at 168 is going to be a real challenge for him, right? Canelo's on the way out. Crawford is never going to fight anybody else at 168. So 168 might be where he should be. 175, he runs into difficulties with people like David Benavidez, right? Let alone be better be Evan Bivol. But 168 would make sense to me. So I, it remains to be seen. Like, honestly,
What
he
will
was
they
hyped
match
up.
him with?
Say again, please.
What will they match him with?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough call to make. I really don't know. I haven't really spent that much time thinking about Hamza Shiraz, other than I think that he was somewhat unfortunate to be hyped up as much as he was. There was a lot of expectation on his shoulders. The whole Riyadh season ambassador, as well as, this up and coming British superstar type thing. So yeah, I don't know. I would have to spend more time thinking about suitable matches for him. But I don't see him picking up a middleweight title. Adames was relatively speaking, the low hanging fruit there. And in my book, Adames beat him.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, easily, easily. I mean, how he walked away from that with a draw, Bob. He just got
Home home cooking.
home cooking. Yeah, well, some sort of cooking going on there, wasn't there? Eh?
Yeah,
But he's
yeah,
been very, very fortunate, and he's very quiet in the media, isn't he?
yeah. I think he would know in his heart that he was gifted a draw because most people in the world would have, looking at that fight, would have said that he was exceedingly lucky to get that result. Should have bought himself a lottery ticket that day. Maybe that was the lottery ticket.
Like what makes it kept his old, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Right, well, Bob, thanks for coming on. Been nice to
Thanks
get
for
you
having me.
on, and I hope you have a good weekend, and we'll have a catch up again.
Absolutely.
Take
Thanks for
care.
having me on.
Cheers, Bob. Bye.
Cheers. Thanks, Ross.
Cheers. That was Bob from Canada's Boxing Channel, YouTube. Give him a follow. Good guy. He's part of the commission on here. Okie dokie. Thanks for liking and subscribing to me as well and leaving a comment. We have a sister channel, Porky's International YouTube. If you like other sports, it's worth a look. I think there's about 30 odd videos on there now. Porky's International YouTube. All right. Cheers. Uyaka.